Hare Krishna, dear YogaFrost, YogaFest friends. I'm really missing all of you. So in that mood, I'm going to offer this little teaching, and I hope it inspires some of you guys to reach out and share your own realization, or if anybody has any questions, please do write and connect. I miss all of you so much. The pandemic and the circumstances, everything of 2020 and now 2021 have, for me, been a nice excuse to go internally. I'm sure many of you feel the same, and yet there are some connections that I really have missed, and Yoga Fest has certainly been one of them. So thank you to all the organizers for the opportunity to connect to the community in some small way. The myth of balance is what I'd like to discuss today, and it's a bit of maybe a startling title, because balance seems to be what we're striving for in many ways in our yoga practice. And I'd like to address that idea and what we might mean by balance, which could be actually dangerous for our development, and maybe a more powerful word or conception to use rather than balance. And I'd like to start off with a little story. And before I do, I'll just say some invocation prayers to my Guru Janas, to my spiritual masters, and to Krishna, to invite their blessings on me and us for this little journey of hearing together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Gyantamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Our story then. There is a sadhu. Sadhu means, in this case, a mendicant, somebody who lived basically like a renunciate. He was in Vrindavan, which is the place where Krishna's manifest pastimes take place. And this sadhu had the practice like most other sadhus. He went door to door each day, just begging a little from some houses in the village, and then he would take whatever was received there, and that'd be his food for the day. Or maybe they'd give him a little cloth, or it's getting cold and they give him a blanket because it's coming winter time. So the sadhus depend on the mercy of others, and others depend on the opportunity to serve those sadhus, because otherwise they get too contaminated with the idea that life's all about accumulating a bunch of stuff. Actually, we know that when we give, that's when we're happiest. So the sadhus give us that chance to give something. And also, because they're living their life ideally for spiritual principles, then that gift also brings us some transcendental benefit. So the sadhu, he was going door to door, and just like all the other sadhus generally do, but this one sadhu had the habit of visiting one house where everyone knew, don't bother. Everyone knew this guy never gives anything, so don't bother stopping by there, because he's just going to get mad. He's going to send you away with a mean look and maybe a harsh word, so don't even bother. But this one sadhu, he had a habit. Even if he wasn't going to go to anyone else's house that day, he would go to this one person's house. So he was going to this one person's house, and that day, that mean old man, he was anticipating that this sadhu is going to come, just like he has every other day. And today, I'm going to give him something. I'm going to give him something that he deserves today. Although I've never given anything, I'm going to give him something. And when that sadhu knocked on the door and the man opened, he had a handful of ash, and he threw it on that sadhu. And if you're coming from a Western background, this might not make too much sense. Ash, it's a little weird. Maybe it gets you dirty, but it's not really a big deal, and a little odd. Why ash? In the Eastern traditions, ash represents a cremated body, right? It's like the trash of trash, actually. Ash is not so auspicious unless it's coming from a puja or a yagya or something, but ash is generally, it's kind of like spitting on somebody culturally. in the East, and especially in India. So this man, he threw ash on the sadhu, and he stood there looking with a very self-satisfied, snarky grin, expecting the sadhu to kind of be despondent at the insult. And instead, the sadhu started jumping up and down. He started jumping up and down. And the man was now just even that much more upset than he had been any of the other days, because he thought he had won. He thought he'd really insulted the sadhu, but instead the sadhu was joyful. And the man, he snarled back. He said, "Why are you so happy?" And the sadhu, after, finishing his jumping and smiling, he looked up at him with a gleam in his eye and he said, "Today you have given me something, and tomorrow you will give me everything." And this is instructive for this idea of the myth of balance, because this is really what we want. Yoga is not about having our cake and eating it too. It's not about a little over here and a little over there and figuring it out. The purpose of our practice is to create an absorbed experience. Everything for divinity. Everything washed through my pure consciousness, which is in connection with Krishna. That's the purpose of our practice. So this idea that I'm balancing necessarily brings with it this idea that I'm giving something over here, but also something over there. And the two places are different. There's something separate in them. And as we all know, yoga doesn't mean separate. Yoga means together. So this is the purpose of our practice, not to separate and separate in a way that we kind of keep things balanced. Balance takes so much work, and it's a constant fear that it's going to fall apart. Yoga actually means to bring in and harmonize, to integrate, to find how all these things support one another, to kind of highlight the awkwardness of balance when we think about it in our practice. Just imagine if you're going to buy a home, which right now we're looking at a property over here to continue to expand our community a little bit. So I'm seeing a bunch of properties now. Imagine if you walked into a property with me and the realtor said, "This home is very nicely balancing on its foundation." If the realtor, "This home is balanced on its foundation," would we take that to be a reassuring thing, or would that make us a little worried? Right? It would actually, we wouldn't want to hear that a home is balancing on the foundation. We'd want to hear that it's settled, it's stable, it's something much more than balance. That word balance would send up a red flag. The other way, it's a little more funny to think about this. If anybody's ever been in New York City especially, but any big city where they have a lot of traffic and a lot of office buildings, then you have these messenger carriers on bicycles. And it seems to be a kind of unspoken ethic amongst these messenger carriers that their feet should never touch the ground until they get off their bike. If any of you guys have ever seen them at a stoplight, they're like trying to balance on their bicycles even though they're not moving, and so it's very hard to do so, but they're shifting their feet and they're shifting the bike and shifting their weight from side to side to try not to tip over. Somehow it's in the ethic that their feet shouldn't touch the ground until they get off the bike and they run the package or parcel up the skyscraper. So this kind of awkward balancing is what we're doing when we're seeing things separate from the divine. And the whole purpose of our yoga practice is to integrate everything that we're experiencing, everything that we're seeing into one experience. This word samadhi has become popular in the West, just like many other yoga terms which are not well understood. But one way to break down the etymology of that word samadhi is samadhya. Sama, same. This is where we get our English word same, sama. To see things the same, dhya, meditation or fixation, focus, dhyan yoga, meditative focus. So samadhi, that my focus is the same. Wherever I am, whoever I'm with, whatever we're doing, that sense of purpose is the same, and therefore my sense of experience, my sense of relationship to these things is the same. I'm not balancing that I'm at work, or I'm with my family, or I'm with my fellow practitioners, I'm up at Song of the Morning, or I'm at the office. It's not that I'm balancing all these experiences and trying to, how much at work, how much with my family, how much with my practice. One who's mature in their practice recognizes all these things as integrated. there's a beautiful text in the Bhagavatam, which is the literature that comes after the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is kind of undergraduate understanding. So the basics of our ontological position as Atma, or spirit, within the material energy, the gunas, and how can we release ourselves from the influence of the gunas and experience transcendence. So the Bhagavatam, if we think of the Bhagavad Gita as an undergraduate study, the Bhagavatam is like postgraduate or graduate level work. And in graduate level work, if any of you have had friends or gone there yourself, you know, there's a little bit of flex in the information at that point. You're actually applying something to the field and trying to make a contribution there. It's not just that you're receiving the information in a kind of rote way and digesting it and then kind of regurgitating it back to show your comprehension. At the graduate level, there's some application. Okay, we all know the basics, but now with that knowledge, what can you do? And so the Bhagavatam is a beautiful compendium of histories of different yogis who have more or less understood these principles expressed in the other yogic literature, and particularly Bhagavad Gita, about the real nature of the self and what happens when you really understand the true nature of the self. And what happens also, there's some examples of mistakes there, yogis who don't quite understand everything as it is yet, and what happens because of that and how to get out of it. So there's a beautiful verse in that Bhagavatam, and I'll share it with you now. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adokshaje ahoitaki apratita ya yatma suprasidati. You may have heard this word before. Siddha means perfection. Suprasidati, this again a Sanskrit prefix that we have in our own English language. Suprasidati, the supreme perfection. Where does that come from? Bhaktir adokshaje. When that sense of bhakti, that sense of service that we all have inside of us, and we may be offering to nation or family or a business venture or a hobby like farming or sewing or painting, when that sense of service is offered to adokshaje, the transcendent reality, and it's done so ahoitaki apratiyata, and this is speaking to our tendency towards balance and why we don't actually want balance. What really brings supracidity, that deep satisfaction that we're all hankering for, is when it's not ahoitaki and it's not apratiyata. Ahoitaki means unmotivated, and apratiyata means uninterrupted. Balance means I'm stopping and I'm starting. There's one side of the seesaw, there's the other side of the seesaw. Something goes up, that means the other thing has to go down. Something else goes up, that means the other thing has to go down. I have time for my family is up, so that means time for work is down. Time for work is up, that means time for sadhana or spiritual practice is down. This is the vision of balance, and it's excruciating. It's exhausting. It's not what the Atma is meant to feel. The Atma is meant to feel that everywhere I am, I'm with my beloved. Samadhi. Everywhere I am, that Krishna is there. My practice is there. The saints are available. Their blessings are present. No matter where I am, no matter who I'm with, if I have that vision. So, ahoitaki apratiyata, unmotivated, uninterrupted. This is what really satisfies the self. And a beautiful analogy that Krishna gives himself in the Bhagavad Gita to highlight this principle that we're not looking for balance, we're looking for something much more fundamental, is when he describes that everything in creation, whether in the transcendent realm or in the realm of the gunas, is still like a pearl strung on a thread, and that thread is himself. And if we think about he says sutre, which like a sutra, so it means like a little thread of wisdom, the sutras, the yoga sutras. So this little a thread, sutre mani gana. Mani means gem, and gana is like earth. So sutre mani gana, that just like my kunti mala here, my camera is not strong enough, so you won't be able to see. But if you think about a necklace with some tulsi beads or some pearls, we wouldn't say that these pearls or beads are balancing on the string. It's something much more fundamental, and no matter which way I pull, tug, or rub, those pearls stay fixed around that string. This is the vision that we're all really hankering for, is to be in the tumult of the material energy, but to be able to recognize that the dust and dirt flying all around us is actually these pearls strung on the thread of absolute truth. And when we're seeing everything in that connection, then there's no question of balance. It's something much more deeper and integrated. It's something harmonious and satisfying, and that we can bring everywhere with whomever we're with. So friends, I offer this to you, that anytime you catch yourself using the word balance, examine what you mean by that. And examine if in fact you're getting distracted into this idea that experiences and things in your life are separate from the experience of divinity that's available in an absorbed yoga practice. And what I found in my own introspection on this, when I started to get annoyed with my own idea of finding balance in my life, was that in fact I was hiding from certain things that I wasn't willing to integrate yet. I wanted my friends to be over here, and my family to be over there, and my practice to be over here. And I would come and, play with them, touch them, deal with them when I felt like it. What Krishna wants, though, what the divinity demands, is that all those things integrate at some point. And that's when we become truly responsible to truth. Otherwise, it's just dabbling. It's just a kind of hobby that we're doing. And when we feel like it, we do it. And when we don't feel like it, we don't do it. And we're balancing out those different emotions and feelings that come up. So that may be where most of us are at most of the time. But today, at least, I'm trying to offer this idea of a higher experience and principle, and encouraging myself and all of you to strive for that experience of true samadhi, and that's what will help us be happy. That's what will help everybody else be happy also when they see us in that state. The best preacher, my Guru Jana Srila Prabhupada, he said the best preacher, the best person to share this divine knowledge, the best preacher of Krishna consciousness is a happy experiencer of Krishna consciousness, a happy devotee. So when we're satisfied ourselves, that's what really helps and uplifts others. So I offer that consideration to all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to remind myself of the importance of these things. I hope this finds you all as well as it can, and that sooner than later we can all be back in person in divine service, taking prasad, chanting the holy name, hearing of each other's realizations. I look forward to that moment very much. Hare Krishna.